guys. Латвия с Пилсони. Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Слава, слава, слава!
There were a lot of expectations today, but we still managed to get here, unlike some other people from across the ocean who could not get into London for a very important meeting. Before we start our delayed war rally, we're gonna have our beautiful national anthem.
Усміхнеться доля, синуть наші дороженьки, як роса на сонці, запанує ними, браття, у своїй сторонці. Тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
І нашим захисникам тричі.
Слава! Слава! Слава!
You won't believe it, but I'm finishing work in 3 minutes. I got here as quickly as I can. When I was preparing to this war rally, when lots of people were exchanging information, what a significant day today will be in international politics. Maybe it will be a start of the end of this war. And then when Ukraine decided that it doesn't want to agree to break international law, to appease Russian scumbag terrorist invaders who are generational war criminals. Today's meeting was diluted and it won't be as seismic as it's supposed to be. Well, for Ukraine, peace is very simple. The aggressor needs to leave Ukraine. The aggressor, which is Russia, must stop killing us. For 1,154 days now, they had nothing but a full-scale invasion. Since 2014, February, they've been in Ukraine. Okay, this is what Russia wants. 4 regions, regardless that they are standing just on 70%, in some of the regions less than 70%. They want all of it. Okay, you give Russia what they want, but their appetite is growing. In 2014, the Crimea was enough. Then 2 regions were not enough. Now it's 4 regions. I think the whole Ukraine won't be enough for Russia, because then there is Moldova. Then they can do referendums in Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania. They've been there before. They don't need even to teach the locals their language, because Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals. Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
Ask yourselves, those Ukrainian and Eastern European supporters that we have, why can you speak Russian language? Because Russia occupied Baltic countries, Ukraine and other countries around it. Why they are running out of countries that they haven't waged war in or haven't done war crimes? Russia is not a Ukrainian problem. There is at least 4 different countries in Africa, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Central African Republic, that Russians are committing war crimes right now. Syria, only until last year, they were there for more than 10 years. Ukrainians are shooting down the bombers that were killing civilians in Syria. Ukrainians are shooting the bombers that were killing civilians in Georgia, Moldova, Chechnya, Afghanistan. This is not a Ukrainian problem. This is a world problem. And peace should not be friends with greed. Peace should be undiluted. Peace should be without appeasement of Russian regime. Russia waged war long before Putin. This is not on Putin, this is on Russians. They don't care who to attack. It was Moldova in 92, it was Georgia in 2008, and in 93 they were involved. Chechnya twice in the 90s. They were in Syria, from Africa to Middle East, from Middle East to Europe. Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Oh, 1 minute ago I finished my work. I am not supposed to be here. You are not supposed to be here. We are forced to be here. Especially the Eastern Europeans, the Latvians, Estonians, Lithuanians. Vitas is not here right now, but we are forced to increase. Thank you, Vitaly, you are here. Latvia is represented. We are forced to be here. Every single European country is increasing their defense budget. Why? Because of Russia. Why is it so important not to be dependent on American military if we are talking about peace in Europe? Because those who you depend on can dictate how the peace will look like. How about you recognize Crimea? We recognize Crimea. De facto, they are occupying it for more than 10 years. The euro, it's still Ukraine. It will still be Ukraine. 100 years ago, they were killing Crimean Tatars there and oppressing them. 2025, they're doing exactly the same. Nothing changes with Russia because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop the war.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russia war criminals.
This is why we gather here. This is why in May we're going to have another fundraiser. This is why we gather here as much as we can. And I really want Americans to take a day off on the 9th of May.
Kurva pomper, пердоли. Да ты сам пердоли, блядь.
And go to that World War II monument in London where the Russians who flee their own heaven, who flee their own oxygen deprived like environment, their country is deprived of democracy, choice.
Витайте на
There is
гаите, мусора
a very
пососите.
famous joke about Russia. there is a freedom of speech in Russia, but it only exists before you speak. It's a funny joke, but it's true.
Ой, Казахстан.
Kirkin, who was one of those convicted in 2014 of shooting down Malaysian civilian plane, around 200 people died. He was convicted and they knew there was an international warrant for his arrest because they
Я
knew
уж
it
куда
was
больше
him.
нацист,
He's in
чем
jail
все
right
вместе
now,
взятые.
but not for killing hundreds of people, no. In Russia you
Я
go to
нацист, а вы
jail
гондоны.
when you say that you disagree with Putin's decisions. If you kill hundreds of innocent people, in Russia this is normal. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
Terrorist state.
Russia is a 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 terrorist state.
And one very unusual person last Thursday for 10 minutes was trying to tell me, he was just asking me about my Easter weekend. And I said, if I'm needed, I'll volunteer, but I was ill, so I couldn't. But back then he didn't know that. And he says, why you just don't give up? Why you keep fighting? Why just you can't make peace? Just give them what they want, he said. Russia will always win. A reality check for you. Before the end of this war, they will run out of money. Every single economical expert says we don't know how the hell, if in their budget, the barrel of oil in their budget is around $60 to $70, and now it's plummeting. So their lowest expectations are being crushed right now. This is why no expert in the world can tell you how the hell can they provide this war machine to keep going in 2026. This will be a historic year for Russia, when they will bluff and they will lose. Like half of their Black Sea Navy is gone. Like half of their tanks gone. By the way, I did some math considering how many people are getting wounded and killed on the Russian side. And their advances just in April this month. It's around 4 square kilometers a day with about 1,000 casualties on average. That gives you the price not of oil but on Russia putting price on Ukrainian land. Approximately 250 dead or wounded Russians cost 1 square kilometer of advances in Ukraine. Do your own maths if you don't believe me. But it will take 144 million plus Russians to occupy all of Ukraine with that rate. Because Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
And all that every Ukrainian wants is for the first war for Ukraine to become the last war crime for Russia. Tribunal for Russian war criminals. Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for
Russia war criminals.
And this is why my formula will not work, unfortunately. Because I do not take into consideration more than 4,000 dead North Koreans in Kursk region. I do not take in account, and my formula is flawed because it doesn't involve thousands of Indians, Africans, people from Sri Lanka, people from Belarus, those who are mercenaries right now killing Ukrainians for a paycheck. We fight to keep peace and freedom in our country. They fight to rule us again. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 And even my father could not answer the question why Even last year, this year it was fine, but even last year, he keeps saying to me happy birthday in Russian language. He was born in Ukraine, he grew up there, but he was forced like everyone else, like Gogol, one of the writers, Ukrainian, like many others, they were forced. If you want a good job, stop talking your bloody language in your own country. Give up your culture, give up your identity, and you become the mighty Russian. And why? Why oh why? No one flee Russia in 2008 when they were waging war in Georgia. No one flee Russia like that when they were waging war and created Transnistria. Chechnya, 2 wars. Syria, more than 10 years. But when in 2022 in September, they were massively drafting to kill Ukrainians. So hundreds of thousands of Russians went where? Where would you think a war criminals Russians would go? They would go to Georgia, the same country they attacked in 2008, in the beginning of the 90s as well. I saw this documentary which made me cry when a Ukrainian volunteer, I don't know if he's alive or no, he was in his 40s in the beginning of the 90s. He was volunteering to help Georgians in 93, I believe, or 92. And he said, when they were raging the military conflict in Georgia, if they can do it in Georgia, they can do it in Ukraine. And they did. Russia will get away with anything, you will let it. 4 regions will never be enough. Moldova will not be enough. They will go as far as they want. And no one knows what they want. Putin gave you, Putin gave Ukraine and the Europe. I say you because Ukraine is the biggest European country, so he gave Europe in the face of Ukraine. He gave them peace during the Easter. It was first time that different denominations were celebrating Easter together. But peace is something that 2 parties can agree on. When one side says, ceasefire and it will be peace, we will not be shooting, but there's lots of terms and conditions. This is not peace.
The
It's a ceasefire from one side, voluntary,
What kind of buffer
and they
state?
broke it. And they broke it. There were so many attacks on so many regions. This is absolutely a nightmare to rationalize any small decision with Russia. Anything you tell them. In Jeddah they said, it was more than a month ago, they said, okay, we will have ceasefire with no conditions. We will get a ceasefire on this and that. Do you understand? Putin says, yes. Yes, I understand. But we need to address the issue of who started this war. An issue that started the war is saying, could you please address me? Please address the issue, which Putin is a wanted criminal, wanted by Hague from 17th of March 2023. He's asking you this year, 2025, we will have a ceasefire when you address the issue of who started it. Okay, from 1991, when USSR broke apart, how many wars have Ukraine had? 0. This is our first war. So the count is 1 up to today, and we were attacked by Russia in the middle of the night. How many wars and how many war crimes in different countries have Russia committed? Between 12 and 20. No one knows the count because Wagner works in places that there is no internet, there is no media, and no one knows how many war crimes they have committed. But what we do know, after Prigozhin's shortest march on Moscow, that Putin said the Russian government funds Wagner. Every war crime that Wagner is committing, Putin said, I pay it. Russian government pays it. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 And I will talk about my air quotes open, good friends, air quote closed, Grushevsky, one of the guys I studied with last year, and he says, by the way, please, why everyone thinks I'm joking? After this war rally, please find the organizers. You will be paid between 100 and 200 pounds. We are all getting paid. Every single war rally that they are organizing, Russian person with the last name Grushevsky is saying that everyone is getting paid here. I calculated, I love maths. I can't help myself. So it's around, because it's been a while since I told you that, it's around 75,000 pounds. Someone knows me for speaking here for 2.5 years. I don't know how many times you came. Imagine how much they owe you. If we find that person in Grushevsky's eyes, he should look like, he will have a mustache and he will look like a Monopoly guy. This is a propaganda that comes in here in London. Good Russians, air quotes open, good air quotes closed. This is what they say to British people, that you are getting paid. This is what they would say to Eugene, whose mom got killed in Mariupol in 2022. This is what they will say to my friends whose brothers and fathers are on the front line since 2022. Many of the friends of my friends are already dead because of this war. We are fighting for peace and freedom. They are fighting for peace of our land. We are fighting for democracy. They are fighting for dictatorship.
Смотри, нам кажется, завезли людей, которые могут связать два предложения и говорят, что это нормально.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 And this is why we are here, no other reason. I used to have very different Sundays before this war. It was theater or a comedy club, or a comedy club than a theater. This is why we had more than 500 war rallies, more than 400.
Buff and Beyond, это официальный у тебя сайт, да?
This is why we have raised 1.15 million pounds. This is why we have, I'm very sorry, the number that I gave you last year was wrong.
Бондаренко за сколько родину продал?
Around between 25 and 26,000 first medical aid kits. Someone told me soon it will be 30,000, so I just went with the number I was told.
Подкинь деньжат на микрофон новый.
Plus, we're gonna gather again this week on Friday to pack a few hundred more to go closer and closer. More than 700 vehicles, ULEZ non-compliant vehicles, we have helped with other volunteers and different organizations, including British Ukrainian Aid, to send to Ukraine to the front line. You are worried about CO2 pollution from the cars. The biggest pollution in Ukraine is Russian scumbag terrorist invaders who are generational war criminals. This is an undisputed historical fact. And a dozen of nations from Africa to Middle East, from Middle East to Europe can testify to that today. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 I don't know about you, but I do not want to wake up in a world where Russia gets what they want and other countries get ideas. Wait a second. You can just annex an island or half an island or a region in any country that is your neighbor who are weaker. Wait a second. How many war crimes will that open up? If you do not care about international law, which Russia clearly doesn't,
Русские
since
моряки
the
в Крыму где?
90s, They have
Потому что я знаю, что они на дне в
every
основном.
single factory of the business
На
that
дне
left.
Черного моря.
Renault sold them their factory. Guess what? They are doing Moskvich again from 2022 or 2023. They restarted Moskvich production. Guess what? It's a Chinese car, but they call it Moskvich. This is why. Always remember, what they call it is not what it is. They are calling a Chinese car Moskvich. They are calling their elections. They are calling their way of life as normal. They are calling war crime normal.
Укрофлот потопил
What they
весь
said
весь
about
ваш
Finland
флот.
when it joined NATO, they said, oh, we are shocked how easily they got compromised their military independence. So being in NATO, so every single Finnish person is stupid.
Пахтун, ты,
They
походу, не
compromised
обучен.
their,
Написать два слова нормально не
military
можешь.
independence. Guess what? The only time that Finnish military independence was compromised was in 1939 when Russia attacked it. This is why we gather here. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 And I don't understand. They call them Vatniks, those people who really believe. They really believe in Russian might. Russian might. When I see on Telegram, by the way, created by a Russian person, how Russians are attacking Ukrainians on donkeys and electric scooters and on the old version of Lada, which was Zhiguli. By the way, it was just a copy of a Fiat. This is not normal. What they are doing is not normal. This is why we are here. All we want to do is for the first war for Ukraine to become the last war for Russia. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 And values should change and will change. I tried to shop electronics recently and I realized any good deal that I find is a company that is still trading. I choose Philips, they are still trading. I choose Ninja appliances, they are still trading in Russia. I choose that appliance, this appliance. Then I realized the only appliance that I could get that does not sell electronics in Russia is not a plug-in, but it's a British company called a Swan. This is why I urge you, please, have a look at the products that are still being sold in Russia. And I even needed to explain it to my little nephew. I explained him how much tax from a Snickers bar is deducted. I explained him what VAT is, and I explained him who takes that VAT. And I explained him, and I said, if you don't believe me, you can Google how much is one bullet. It costs just few cents. And this is why even a chocolate bar sold in Russia, the VAT from it can buy a handful of bullets and kill 3 to 5 Ukrainians. This is why it is so important that you hear us say, and it's very important that your decisions are moral, not based on price. No trade with Russia.
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 And as a most sanctioned country in the world, because they are so good, because they are so powerful. No country, not even North Korea. I bet the North Korean leader was so upset. I'm not number one anymore on the sanctions. Russia overtook us. Wait a second. What Russia does? No, we haven't done that. Let's do that again. Wait. They are sending wounded and crippled to the front line. Even North Korea have not done that. This is why it is so important. Everyone needs gas and everyone needs oil, but you do not need Russian gas and you do not need Russian oil. More sanctions on Russia.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
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 This is why we gather here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. for 2 hours and every Sunday at 3 p.m. for 2 hours. If we are not here, we will be there in the Parliament Square. If we are not there, it will be announced. Sometimes we gather next to Saint Volodymyr statue. This is why it is so important for us. This Sunday there won't be any war rally. We're going to support our Ukrainians who are going to run. Some of the veterans and other Ukrainians going to run. We're going to gather here. Please have a look on the social media. I do not know the time yet. I need to check myself. We will gather here and we will try to support them. We will go there with Ukrainian flags. This is why it is so important. When Vlad was running last year and he saw us standing on the bridge waving Ukrainian flag, that meant so much when someone is in your corner. Same way like Japan in last few days announced, while America is saying we might stop giving you satellite images and intelligence. Japan, historically being neutral after World War II,
London,
and
gentlemen,
considering their history with America, had announced that they will provide the intelligence that Ukrainian army needs. France, this year as well, said we will provide. It's not as good as American, but it is reliable. And also I think Italy also announced, and Japan said that in next 12 months 6 or 7 satellites will be launched to amplify the quality and the quantity that they can share. This is why it is so important that we do not lean on the greed of those who used to help us, and we just lean towards unity in Europe, because this war is on this continent. This war is in Europe. It's not somewhere far away. It's only, I think, around 2 hours flight from London to Kiev, around 2.5 hours flight. Anywhere in Europe, it's around 2 hours flight. Because it's Europe. Ukraine does not need to be in NATO or European Union to be part of Europe. Geography tells you that Ukraine is part of Europe. The news and every single politician can tell you, and every single economist will tell you, that this is the largest European crisis, both humanitarian and political and economical. This is only for one reason, because Russia decided that Crimea is not enough. Raging civil war and infiltrating Donetsk and Lugansk region is not enough. No, they want 4 regions. Then they say there is unfinished business in Moldova. Nothing is enough for Russia, because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia,
Stop the war.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
And this is why we gather here. This is why every single Wednesday around 1 p.m. Jan is gathering. He's standing by himself. He's gathering all his posters, and he has a one-person demonstration in St. Albans. He had around 90 of them. This is why this is so important that we support each other, that we help each other, because I don't know a single Ukrainian who is not touched by this war and by atrocities what Russia is doing. This is why so many things are getting more expensive. This is why so many budgets of so many countries, including UK, is shifting towards military. Because Russia is a threat. Scandinavian countries last year said, and they did not retreat this statement, that they have 5 to 6 years to prepare for a potential attack on them. This is why Finland joined NATO. Not because it was bored watching Ukraine suffer. No, because having Russia as a neighbor is the biggest geographical punishment any country can have. Having Russia as a friend is the biggest political, economical and social burden that any country can have. Sveta is not here with us today, our Belarusian friend, and other of our Belarusian friends are not here today. Their relatives are political prisoners in Belarus. Hundreds of thousands of Belarusians
Кидай сюда на стрим, мы передадим денежку твою.
And 20 they were fleeing 2 years before this started, this war started, this full-scale invasion started. And we saw, and they told us, we saw it.
Кто кидает жалобу, кидайте еще фунт, $2, евро на донат.
Of Russian armed military police in Belarus subduing any evidence of democracy after another rigged election. This war is very simple. On one side we have Ukraine and those who help Ukraine, which is most of the European
Мы в Москве стоим.
even by de facto, even Switzerland help us. They're not giving us tanks, but when other countries give tanks, they replenish them. So they do help us, but in their own way. Hungary is the only country that is against any aid, and we know why. Every family has someone like Hungary. We have Japan, we have Australia, we have Canada, we have part-time America in 2025. They helped us a lot in the past, but Europe cannot rely on America's mood. It should rely on their own supplies and their own factories. This is why lots of military production is moving to Ukraine, and lots of military aid is given to Ukraine. And Sweden, a few months ago, Sweden said, we would rather Ukrainians use it against Russians than in the future us using it against Russians. Last year, Moldovan president said that the peace for Ukraine means peace for Moldova. I repeat forwards, not Ukrainians. That the peace for Ukraine means peace for Moldova. This peace should not be drowned in greed. This peace should not be drowned in appeasement of Russian scatterers. Terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist
State.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Денис, поклич, щоб пісню поставив. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
І нашим захисникам тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Thank you everyone for coming. We're gonna have a short music and then we're gonna continue. Thank you so much.
Без звука качество, как у телефона.
Ты шо? Да не, в холодильник заплатить его.
Там, видишь, захватчик холодильников и
Слава
туалетов.
Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
І нашим захисникам тричі.
Слава! Слава! Слава!
This is why it is so important that we keep coming to these war rallies. This is not some kind of a performance. We have people from Hong Kong who live in Manchester coming here around once a month just to hold a Ukrainian flag. Ukrainian flag means resistance against oppressors. Ukrainian flag means hope, peace, freedom and democracy. Every single country in the world have internal problems, corruption and other stuff. We will fight our corruption when we finish fighting those who have influenced that corruption since the beginning of the 90s. This is why those Russian politicians and Russian businessmen are getting arrested. This is why Ukrainian journalists keep bringing light when Ukrainian mobile networks are being bought with Russian money. We will expose it.
Фашисты и
and we
нацисты
will
у тебя
fight
в Кремле,
it.
в
But
Москве
for now,
сидят.
we are trying
Только ты этого не
to
заметил.
stop Russians killing us. We are trying.
Напишите, у кого как видео хорошее и звук хороший ли.
Every single day, more than 4 square kilometers become an empire of a bold cannibal and a wanted criminal, which Putin is. A cannibal and a war criminal. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia
Не кидайте больше страйков. Видео
Russia is a terrorist
уходит.
state.
Russia is a
Terrorist state!
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia! Stop the war!
And this is why it is important. When you make peace with an aggressor or a criminal, you do not ask the criminal,
Stop Russia, stop the war.
what would you like out of it? You killed hundreds of thousands of people. You kidnapped 25,500 children. You have destroyed partially or fully between 250,000 and 350,000 civilian buildings, hospitals, schools, shopping centers, restaurants, civilian housing. Even this week, even on the Easter Sunday, they are trying to kill as many Ukrainians as you will let them. This is why you will hear us say, air defense for Ukrainian civilians. Air defense for Ukrainian civilians.
Air defense for
Бендера был один, у вас миллион советских граждан воевало на стороне Третьего рейха.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia! Stop the war!
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia! Stop the war!
And I spoke to my cousin this week as well, and I said to him, what would be a deal that Ukrainian soldiers, as you are on the front line, he was born in Ukraine, I was born in Czech Republic, I'm a European citizen, and I would be considered as a mercenary if I fight.
О каком терроризме ты говоришь?
This is why I do what I can from where I am. I was born in Europe, I grew up in Europe, I was always a visitor in Ukraine, but I love that country. This is
Людмила, а
why,
что ты вообще знаешь про
even
Бандеру?
after I became an
Мне чисто
adult and I
теоретически
moved here
интересно.
more than 20 years, I think in less than 2 weeks it will be 21 years that I live in London. The most visited country for me was still Ukraine. After Hawaii, after any country in Europe, I still go to Ukraine, I still go to Ukrainian theater, because No matter where I was born, no matter how much blood I will donate, no matter what school I went to, it was a Russian-speaking school in Latvia. No matter what other degrees I will do, you cannot change the nature of Ukrainian
Все,
and my
расскажи нам
blood,
про
which
святища.
is 100% Ukrainian blood, regardless
Захаров,
of
более
what
миллиона
my
людей
passport
советских
cover says.
перешло на
This is
сторону
where I grew up,
Третьего рейха.
but this is why it is so
Где гарантии, что ты
that
не ихний
Ukrainians
потомок? Деды
does
твои
not matter
воевали на стороне рейха.
where their nationality is right now, which passport they hold, that they do not let
Людмила,
go
нет
of
гарантий.
the democratic
Ты могла
values
быть
that
Власов,
Ukrainians are fighting for.
внучкой Власова.
This is not just land. This is not just some children. It's Ukrainian children.
Прям
No,
миллион людей
those
на
are human
Западной
beings.
Украине.
Just ask yourself,
Там русские все были.
Russian history,
И сербы ваши.
what destiny awaits those 19,500 children, which in less than a decade they
И
will become
кубанские казаки
18 on
тоже
average?
были на стороне немцев.
How many wars and how many war crimes have Russia committed in last decade? Where they gonna fight and who they gonna fight for whose natural resources, precious rare materials. This is why it is so important that the first war for Ukraine becomes the last war for Russia, because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 And while we keep defending ourselves, they keep attacking. 1,154 days and counting.
Людмила, а русский язык ты не учила?
I will wake up
Как
at
правильно
5 and I
писать?
will go to work. I will leave home around 5:30.
Какими градами
But
твой
many
день?
Ukrainians are sleeping right now. They will wake up very soon. They will get in a truck with a machine gun and they will try to hunt what we refer to as mopeds. It's Shahid drones, and in last few months some experts have calculated that Russia have sent more Shahid drones since Trump took office than in the whole of last year. This is how peace looks like for Russians, because Russians are scumbag terrorist invaders. They are generational war criminals. This is an undisputed historical fact. And a dozen of nations, from Africa to Middle East, from Middle East to Europe, will testify to that today. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 And this is why we gather here. And we will gather here. Someone told us that it's one of the longest war rallies in British history. They told us this last year. But we had more than 150 war rallies since that MP came over to us and told us that. We wish it was the shortest. We wish it was one of those wars that was ended so quickly. America is saying to you right now, well, if any of the parties will be difficult, that we will just wash our hands and it's nothing to do with us. You do you. Well,
Лена, героям слава.
Ukraine is not difficult. Ukraine is very simple. For us, peace, just a definition of peace. Release our prisoners of war, leave our land, leave us alone, let us
Людмила, вы уже про своего Бога показали на Пасху. Вы уже показали, в какого Бога верите вы.
By the way, Romanian as well, Moldovan as well, Georgian as well. You see, Russia is not a Ukrainian problem. Russia is a world problem. Ask anyone in Mali, ask everyone in Niger, ask everyone in Central African Republic, ask anyone in Syria. Why? Ask yourself, why did Putin did not send any reinforcements to Syria last year? Because Russia was never, ever as weak in last half a century than it is right now. This is why they are stalling. This is why they are asking North Koreans to fight in Kursk since 6th of August last year for 7 months. This is why they are asking North Koreans, please give us your low precision ammunition so we can break another 2 Geneva Conventions. This is why they are torturing our prisoners of war. And this is why every single war rally we lower our flags and we have a minute of silence which honors the lives lost and the lives slaughtered by Russian scumbag terrorist invaders. And we're going to have that minute of silence now. Thank you so much.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
І нашим захисникам тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
I think in the last 36 months I drank more tea than in whole of my life because I never lost my voice as often as I did in the last 36 months. As many Ukrainians, me as well, even from the safety of London, I was never that anxious. I never had that
Бусик поехал за вами,
in my
Русня.
life since the full-scale invasion, because this is very real for Ukrainians. This is very real for those who have friends in Ukraine. This is very real for those who does not take for granted the values. We had 2 Georgians last year standing over there. I did not know they were Georgians. They were just standing there and they looked very serious. And I thought they were very angry at something that I said. But after the war rally they told me, thank you for remembering what happened to us in 2008. This is why we don't want you to remember us. We want you to help us. Help Ukraine protect peace.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
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 And we try to talk about it as less as possible, but as much as the tariffs will bow China to America, the same way a Russian version of peace will be implemented for Europe. Because only Europe should decide where the borders of its countries lie. Only international law, not Russian war criminals, should decide where the border of Ukraine is. Crimea, if you ask any Crimean Tatar, how was it to live when Ukraine was supplying water and everything. I watched a documentary, you can Google it. After the World
Денис,
War II,
come next time to Downing
I think
Street.
between World War I
Wednesday.
and World War II,
Wednesday,
it was
6 o'clock.
hard to economically sustain
Downing
Crimea.
Street.
It was not like it was now. Have a look at the history of Crimea since Ukraine took over and started to supply water to farming there. That farming was not done on a scale. This is why they call us, Ukraine, the breadbasket of Europe. And this is why they call Russians scumbag terrorist invaders, generational war criminals. Like their parents were waging war, and this is why
можно поспорить, но с такими ботами
Estonians, Lithuanians,
сразу проиграешь.
Ukrainians, Georgian, Kazakh people, everyone that Russia dares to touch with their rotten border speak Russian. Why? Because their parents and their grandparents made sure that your parents and your grandparents speak that language. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 And this is why this week, last week, for the last, I think 2.5 years, maybe even more than that, almost from the
Олена, добре кажеш.
very first year of invasion. It started autumn of 2022.
кидай
We keep getting
донатики.
these messages. We kept getting these interviews with Africans, with Asians, we got Indians, Sri Lankans. They were saying, I was a student, I had
Нет,
problems
Карл,
to renew
кидай
my
сюда
visa. They
донаты.
said, if you're gonna cook
Либо
in the
пиши,
army, if you just cook in
вопрос
the army, you'll be
платно.
fine. And then next thing you know, he's on the front line. Next thing you know, he's in a Ukrainian, he's captured by Ukrainians. And he says, they lied to me. So the Africans in Russia who end up in Ukrainian war prison now because they are mercenaries, the Africans are telling you, Russians lied to us. When Putin told you on 23rd of February of 2022, we do not have any plans to attack Ukraine, he lied to you because he did. And now he tells you he does not have any plans to attack Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania. Ask yourself, why there is more than 100,000 of soldiers having military exercises on the Latvian border from last year? They are there to exercise. Later this year, they will exercise with Belarusians. I wonder how did the last war military exercise have concluded in 2022 in February by invading
Зеленский не
Ukraine.
отказался.
This
Если ты
is
помнишь,
why
вы вышли из
we are
него
telling you
во второй
that
половине
Russia
февраля
is not
22
a
года.
Ukrainian
Россия
problem.
вышла из этих
It's a
договоров.
European problem. It's an African problem. Every time they are intimidating cargo ships that are leaving any military, if you have any military in your family, they will tell you what is a secondary detonation. So when they bomb
Вас
a
кто
crane
орал и агитировал,
in,
уже сидит в
Odessa
тюрьме.
port last
Другие
year,
уехали из
and they
страны.
say it was a military ship carrying ammunition.
Админ,
Ask any specialist.
вы
Ask
сожгли
ChatGPT,
людей
ask
на
Google,
все праздники
ask even
религиозные.
Яндекс in
Вы
Russia
сожгли
you can ask.
сегодня
There
людей.
should be a secondary
Вы сжигаете
detonation.
людей каждый
You
день.
know what does
Про
not
какую
have a
Одессу ты
secondary
говоришь? В Одессе вы
detonation?
убили в этом году
Our
уже
grain,
28,
our crops
в этом
do
месяце
not have a
28 людей.
secondary
Просто
detonation.
убили.
They have a
Про
fact
какую Одессу ты
because they
говоришь?
don't reach
Напомни.
Africa, they don't reach Egypt, because we are breadbasket of Europe, which is bleeding. They are nothing but war criminals. For them, this is just another war. For us, this is our war. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 And this is why it is so important for us to gather here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. for 2 hours like we are doing now. We don't have a war rally on Fridays anymore.
В Доме профсоюзов были граждане Украины, которые ничем не отличаются от тех граждан Украины, которых вы убиваете 1150 дней. Каждый день вы убиваете людей в Одессе. Кто за них ответит? In Russia, you cannot gather like we are gathering right now. You cannot gather because in Russia protests are illegal. There was one lady, I downloaded that video, I will keep it forever. При том, что Африку вы подкупили, пол-Африки держите на поводку. Деньги им списываете, долги.
Paper, 2 words. Literally, she wrote 2 words. The word two and the word words.
Ваш режим упадет первым. Вы потеряли Российскую империю за 100 лет, вы потеряли Советский Союз за те самые 100 лет, вы потеряете и вашу федерацию. Путин — это последний президент вашей федерации.
For them, this is a special military operation. So when we say no to war, we surely are not talking about their war crimes. Surely we are not talking about that. So how can someone
Евреи показывают, на что способны в секторе Газа. Это нужно сделать и на всей территории России. То, что делают евреи.
Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 And this is why we're gonna have, like I said earlier, we're gonna have Toloka. This is why it is so important that we gather here, that we support each other. If anyone will make a collection, maybe later in the end of May, I will try to buy a vehicle. I will ask British-Ukrainian aid. I'm not just how to take it to Ukraine, what to do step by step. I don't need any money. Some of my friends, some people that are standing next to you will chip in. The rest I will just cover. I will try to service it. I will ask my friends if they want to join me. I will drive it. I can go in and leave Ukraine because I'm a Latvian citizen. I'm a British Latvian citizen. I've been living in Latvia and in Britain for all of my life.
Даже такой структуры не существует. Какие бендеровцы? Бендеровцы были 100 лет назад, их уже больше нету.
But Ukraine should not be Russia again, because this was the worst time in Ukrainian history when our culture is diluted, when our language is ridiculed. Because for them, any other country is offensive. Anyone who prospers, anyone who succeeds, this is unacceptable. And this is why they are helping Belarus for dictatorship to stay. But this is why Syrian dictatorship fell.
Из Московской области.
Just because of what Syrian people did, but what Ukrainians did to the Russian war machine that could not afford to help Syrian regime to continue. This is why we gather here. This is why we support Ukraine, because this is personal for us. Because democracy is something that we value. Freedom is something we enjoy with every breath. Peace is what we enjoy. Sometimes when I walk on my breaks and I hear like birds chirping, I do not hear generators like in Ukraine. You hear generators every time we have a blackout. This is why peaceful sky is a luxury in Ukraine for 1,154 days now. And that should not be a luxury. It should be as normal as it is now. because Ukraine is fighting for democracy, peace and freedom against the biggest, now it's shrinking, Syrian dictatorship is gone. Biggest dictatorship club that should cease to exist. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Нашим захисникам тричі.
Слава! Слава! Слава!
And as always, we're going to finish with our beautiful national anthem. And those who don't know it, what it means, just translate it, and it will explain to you our struggle today. Because until the Russians are killing us, we are singing it about them. Слава Україні!
Ну что, сейчас из вас пар будет идти. Не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Слава нації! Нашим захисникам тричі.
Смерть!
Дякую за підтримку. Thank you for your support.
Так, балдес. Так, Русня, тут еще вы здесь. Вот это вот девочка, где мой палец? она с Луганской области. Вот этот хлопчик с Донецкой области. Вот тот человек, который с Москвы. Вот тот человек, который там помогает, с Донецкой области. Я сам с Донецкой области. Вот этот человек с Италии. Вот этот человек в кепке белой с Литвы. Так что, русня поганая, вам нас не победить. Так, кидайте донатики. Кидайте донатики. Ждем. Все донатики пойдут на ВСУ. Подписывайтесь. Через недельку повторим стрим. Вся русня должна вернуться в стрим. Писать очень злобные комментарии. Лайкать. За донат не откажусь. Поблагодарю даже. Подожди, привет, медведь, что там пишешь? Вы в Европе кричите, что вы герои, но не ту локацию выбрали. Это мы в Московской области. Я же тебе писал уже, говорил. За донат я выпью кофе. Вот что. Кидай бабулеты. Значит, я здесь куплю потом кофеюшечку. Выпью за здоровье президента Украины. К вам 20 ракет. Нет, Дима, к нам 20 ракет не летят. Вы ссыкло, и вы никогда не будете бомбить Лондон. Крым наш. Крым, он как отошел, так и вернется. Может быть, даже при твоей жизни, чтобы ты это увидел. И точно при твоей жизни твоего президента, чтобы он увидел и помер от этой новости. Вас в Москве уже выиграли. Ага. В Московскую область, по-моему, добрался ваш Пригожин, повар Путина, которого потом Путин же и в самолете взорвал. Да, я сейчас в Киеве, видишь? Взорвал Путин. А, нет, Пригожин нанюхался наркотой и бросался гранатами в самолете. Вот такая версия официальная. Путин его не взрывал. We going to play? Just 4 people? Okay.
Что вот это? Все еще показываешь?
Да, там у них аж пердак горит. Почитаешь?
Что, в Украине-то давно? Двухэтажные автобусы, спрашиваю, давно запустили?
С апреля, как я помню. С апреля месяца уже, 3 недели. Это подарок от Великобритании.
Говорят, что ни у кого пердаки не горят.
Когда был этот самый гимн, пердаки там так поджигало, что 800 людей пришло смотреть. Сколько сейчас? 400, ну вот, видишь, после гимна подтянулись люди.
Аж пришли на Лондон посмотреть, я так понимаю. Саш, ну приезжай, что ты?
Это что, визу надо открывать, наверное. Паспорта нет. Все, застряли?
Что, ну, пиздец.
Стараются. Сдохни. Видишь, Дима? Уже не помню, Дима, за кого он приедет. Встретимся. Приедем в Мариуполь, приедем. Только вас там не будет.
Конечно, в Киеве. Анатолий, ты чё? Чё, видишь, Крещатик?
Да?
Сука, блядь. Ты смотри на них.
Стараются?
Стараются, смотри.
Жаль, Павла нет, он бы тут с ними поговорил еще.
Они заебали с этим своим, от войны свалили, от войны свалили. Я никуда не валил.
Так не было, а если бы они не напали, то и войны бы не было, никто бы не валил. Разве логика не говорит это?
Ну пошли уже тогда. Говорят, автор не ври.
Нет, если подумать, кто начал войну и почему люди начали убегать, так что тут, по-моему, опять же, просто логически, если подумать. Там еще плющит.
Кэш плющит.
Их там
Я говорю на русском языке, потому что я русский, но я не автор.
Jeigu čia yra lietuvių, galima lietuviškai šnekėti. Если вас из 10 человек, 9 человек из России, на каком с вами говорить языке?
Говорим на том, на котором понимаете.
Да. На котором пишете, на том и отвечаем. Пишите на английском, пишите на...
Я і українською можу, якщо треба. Запрошають українською. Смотри, блядь, осколки Украинской империи. Выключай их нахуй. Казахский не могу, сорян.
Что-то было.
Смотри, смотри на это.
Так, не говорите. Видишь как? Как вам Киев? Леша, это ты, наверное, подсмотрел в книжке какой-то. Я не прав. Вместо того, чтобы брать и кричали, что вы герои, было, что на русском написано.
Что было непонятно. Ну смотри. Мне говорит, нам вам до Лондона как пешком добуряться.
Ну смотри, вы ехали с Украины, чужую страну, вы мне... все вернутся, когда вы покинете оккупированные города, населенные пункты. Вот тогда половина людей вернутся в тот же месяц, когда вы уберетесь с чужой территории. Никто не хотел уезжать, и никто не хочет жить в чужой стране. У всех были свои дома, были бизнесы, была своя жизнь, садик, школа, университет, пока вы своим свинячьим рылом не пришли и не нагадили. И это люди запомнят на 100 лет вперед.
Слушай, они реально после митинга приходят, типа, нахуя сейчас вот нам 600 человек, когда все кончилось?
Ну да, плохо. А надо было.
Да все.
Да, 600, видишь, в 3 раза больше, чем.
Че, Саш, я пойду, а ты там на диване будешь сообщения писать ты на каком-то YouTube стриме.
Ты своего сына уже послал? Или у тебя нет сына, или ты сам школьник? Вот когда Песков своего сына из Лондона заберет и пошлет в окопы, вот там и можем встретиться. А так-то дочь Пескова почему-то в Париже, а сын в Лондоне.
Что, у вас вопроса другого нет? Ты смотри, за Пескова оскорбились.
А? Что-то пошло не так?
Что еще олигархов начнут защищать?
Но.
Жди. 2 минуты.
У Пескова не один сын, насколько я понимаю, и ни один на фронте не был замечен. Пусть покажет пример, как надо защищать родину от НАТО, от американцев.
Говорят, врем про Пескова.
Да? Песков, наверное, в Москве живет, никуда не выезжает, старается. Половина детей политиков живут в Евросоюзе и в странах НАТО. Половина. С 2 паспортами уже давным-давно. Мы туда же идем, да?
Да. Туда. Ну, то, типа, это улица, не принципиально.
Защищают Пескова,
Не, все.
уважаемого человека.
Спрашивают, где дети украинских политиков.
Очень много кто пошел на фронт с первого дня, записались в тероборону. Все, кому надо, тот пошел уже. Украина не нападала на Россию, тут тоже надо это учесть.
Прошу Господа освободить нас от Путина.
Видишь как? Ну,
Я,
Дед.
по-моему, неправильно его прочитал.
там туда, нет?
Да.
Дед Франциск уже отошел в мир иной. Ну, другой дед когда-нибудь тоже отойдет. Только, конечно, он сделает плохого очень много для этого. Путина ждет участь такая же, как и Чаушеску, итальянского, как его там, Второй мировой войны, Муссолини. Вот, и он там будет рядом висеть. Уже будем заканчивать наш стрим.
Ну да. Спрашивают, что руки дрожат. Мы идем. Руки не дрожат.
Да, стабилизатора нет, мы просто идем, шагаем, и так оно делает. За стабилизатор вы должны денежку накидать.
Донатьте на стабилизатор, руки не будут дрожать.
Да.
Все, выключай их нахуй.
Все, 312. Короче, через неделю будьте здесь, на том же месте, в то же время. О, привет, медведь, что ты пишет? Вы это всем, чем вы занимаетесь, блядь, по по всему миру. Да не, у каждого своя работа. Это после работы мы пришли, если ты не заметил. Каждый занимается своим делом, а потом после работы вечерком приходим сюда напомнить миру, чем вы занимаетесь. Оккупанты. Люди начинают забывать. Другие люди не могут показать на карте, где это происходит. Ладно, пора заканчивать. Светло. Ага. Так, 1:30. Увидимся через неделю. Оккупантам смерть.